Workshop to order, and
Mr. Weissayer is here, but he is not.
oh, is he here?
Yeah,
I'm
he's
sorry.
in the bathroom.
He's somewhere. Must have got a little boys' room or something.
You're good, you're good.
You want to go ahead and?
Absolutely. Thank you, Board. What we've prepared today was to update the board and to bring Dr. Pace into the fold as we move forward on the energy service contracts. You'll recall that we had a previous presentation by the two firms that were selected. We are in the audit phase right now, and there were some business decisions made that we made internal in an effort to allow us to bring our CFO into it and Dr. Pace. And we really haven't had a chance to sit down and vet everything with her or with Ms. Graber. And I felt that was something the board had asked that we do on some of our business items until we had our finance officer in place, because this is going to be a long-term, contract that potentially is something that finance needs to review and make sure that they're comfortable with whatever options we go forward with financing. I'd like to bring Mark Cavaney up with our maintenance department as our maintenance director, and Mark and his staff, and specifically Chip Bishop, our assistant director of maintenance. Chip, would you like to come up for this presentation?
Maybe you got a tie-in, I'm worried.
I'm going to let Mark go ahead and start, and they have a presentation, and then it's really for some Q&A from the board to the company representatives, and perhaps Dr. Pace may have some comments at the end of this. I have spoke in depth a little bit about where we're at, but she just needs to hear this presentation. Thought it would be a good time for her.
Superintendent Pace and board members, thanks for the opportunity to present today. Before I bring up our ESCO companies for their presentation, I'd like to take a moment to thank staff for their cooperation and valuable input that has helped get us to this point in this contract. I believe that you will be pleased with the progress both companies have made in this tedious process. I also want to recognize Siemens and Con Edison for the tremendous effort that they have put into this phase of the project. I commend them for their willingness to work closely together and to help the district standardize these upgrades and to realize any savings from the energy improvements that we possibly can. Our efforts towards this goal are twofold. First is to continue to provide suitable facilities for our students and staff. With aging facilities and limited capital budget, this process will help us meet some of the immediate needs. Second is to find additional energy savings through the upgrades to help us fund much needed capital projects that have been identified through our facility condition assessment process. Board, this was a very large task. It's a long-term task. We don't take any step of it lightly. We have put a lot of effort into this. A lot of meetings have taken place. There's been a lot of footwork done. You will see that through the presentations that are presented, today. With that being said, I'd like to invite Greg Eaton up with Siemens to the front of the room and to present you with our current status. And after their presentation, board, we will be open to your questions.
Can I ask a quick question before you start?
Yes, sir.
Just so I'm clear, we're having this meeting because we wanted to have the meeting. You're not done with the audit stage.
That is correct. This is an update for
Okay,
the
that's fine. I just
superintendent,
want to make sure I
for the new CFO, since they're on board now. We're just trying to bring that.
That was based on, I think, at a previous workshop.
Yeah, we'd asked.
It had brought up, where we at.
I just wasn't quite
and
sure.
sort of
I
the
think you
status
said it,
of
but I was.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Well, first off, Mark, thank you for those kind words, and I'd like to thank Dr. Pace and welcome aboard.
Thank you.
And thank the board for the opportunity to present today this project. So, first off, the Maintenance and Facilities Department has done a tremendous job getting us the information we need, touring the facilities. They've demonstrated a commitment, a lot of hard work, and dedication to developing the right project for the school district. This project has also been a great example of collaboration, where you've had two ESCOs working together, and we've worked together far better than I'd ever anticipated. Jay, being an industry expert, you understand where I'm coming from in that statement. But at this point, I'd like to introduce Account Executive for Siemens, Gary Kreitzler, and Account Executive for Con Ed, Jeff Wyckoff.
Thank you, Craig.
Thank you. So I don't have to look back over my shoulder. We'll use that. Dr. Pace, board members, thank you for the opportunity to be able to present the joint Siemens Con Edison solution for capturing energy savings and being able to present a performance contracting project. Why do performance contracting? The state of Florida has been generous to public agencies to be able to allow you to have different methods to be able to engage in construction, specifically renovations and specifically very complicated renovations on large enterprises such as this. And they have allowed now probably more than 2 decades to be able to have public agencies use Florida Statutes 489, which allows for performance contracting, which is the capturing of energy savings, as well as maintenance operations savings and capital costs going forward to be able to fund a project. It's much different than design build, it's much different than general construction hard bid, and much different than construction management. However, it brings all of the better parts of all of those deliveries to clients such as yourself. Moving forward, as I mentioned, it's a way to be able to save energy, water use savings, as well as capital cost and maintenance savings to be able to fund a project. It preserves capital dollars so that the district may be able to use those funds for other more important things. It improves the learning environment, and it works to be able to repair and standardize and replace outdated lighting, HVAC equipment, controls, plumbing. Those are specific what we're talking about here, but in general in the industry it can include anything, truly. General construction, security, cable TV, IT solutions. You know, the industry has brought lots of different improvement measures to owners through performance contracting. But the 4 I mentioned on this slide are the ones that are prevalent in this project. It allows you to have one point of contact through award through completion. So the design, the construction, the implementation, the warranty, and the measurement, verification, and guarantee of this savings are all with one party. It's a transparent and controlled procurement, follows the CCNA documents and statutes, and it's a very open procurement procedure. All the savings are measured and verified and guaranteed by the separate companies for the work that they've installed, which means that if we build a project around certain savings and assumptions, if they are not met, then Siemens and Con Edison takes the risk for that savings and then covers the shortfall. Details of that will be in the contract coming forward, and we look forward to being able to have some dialogue between now and the presentation of that. Most importantly for the district, it provides you cover from risk. Siemens and Con Edison cover the shortfall, number 1. Number 2 is that there are no change orders in the project. We've covered 4 million square feet. I think you've said it's 50 miles walking through every one of the projects, from front door to back door, and looking at all the mechanical rooms, classrooms, everything. So we've covered a lot of work, and there are no change orders in the work. So this graphic actually shows a little bit more simply how a project is funded. The pie pieces that come from different funding sources within the district or for any client. This is a generic. So we look at capturing the energy savings, that's electric, water, gas. We look if there happens to be any maintenance or operations savings, then those funds can be used. And the statute also allows you to be able to identify projected capital expenses and being able to apply those to the project. And those separate pieces actually fund what becomes the project. So what's been happening? I think this is when I hand this off to my buddy. This is you. I'm not going to go anywhere, so
Okay.
go ahead.
Both of the ESCOs had each side of the district, as you know, and it's about a little over 2 million square feet per side. And we have walked every mechanical room several times. And like Gary just said, we had our pedometers on, and it's about 50 linear miles over 4 days if you walk from one mechanical room to another. So if you think about that.
10,000 steps in this day.
Absolutely. My little human app told me I was doing a good job. But again, that's the hard work that Calvin and Marco, the energy engineers for both of the ESCOs, have done. And it's been an unbelievable amount of documenting, looking, inventorying, and evaluating the conditions and the operating characteristics of each piece of equipment. So I'm trying to bundle all this together to give you an idea of what goes into these things, because after they do that, then they have to come back and start evaluating it. What makes sense to look at, what doesn't? What could use some assistance as far as new belts, equipment, commissioning, retro commissioning, make sure the buildings are working the way they're supposed to, and they do a lot of number crunching. We have done energy modeling on over a dozen schools, and energy modeling is another extensive piece of work. It can take up to 6 weeks to do one school, where you basically reconstruct the building in electronic format in specialty software that enables you to model how that building should run, how it was designed to run, versus how it is running. Once all these models are built, then we can evaluate what types of measures would make sense for the building. We want to use the money that's available from the funding sources to use it on projects that make sense. And that's the main thing this effort focuses on. Common sense, practicality. This is not about replacing everything. It's very selective. For example, we're not looking at parking lot lights. Why? Because they only are on 2 to 3 hours a day. So you could put them in, but you're not going to get any energy savings out of them. They're going to cost more than they would save. That's just an example. Same thing with air conditioning equipment. We're not replacing everything. We're looking at what needs to be replaced with explanations why. So to that end, all of this work that you see is adding up to an investment grade audit, which is coming. It's not ready yet. We're still working on it. A piece of this is the actual standardization. What Siemens is doing on one side of the district with lighting technologies, for example, we at Con Ed need to use on the other side of the district, so you're not stocking 2 different sets of manufacturers and model numbers and things of that nature. And in this case, with hundreds of components, we have to work with maintenance to make sure, what do you guys want, what makes sense, what is the optimal mix. Once we get that information, then we let our manufacturer reps and subcontractors work together to get the bills of material aligned. That's still in process, but we're pretty well down the road now. So these are kind of an overview of where we're at. And it's one of the reasons we don't have a lot of detail for you right now as far as numbers and specifics by school. All that information will be in the audit and will be presented at a future workshop, I guarantee. So let's talk real quick about how we got here for the benefit of Dr. Pace. The RFQ came out a little over a year ago. That RFQ probably took, how long did it take you guys to put that together, Mark?
Well,
A couple months?
probably a month and a half.
Month and a half, 2 months? Those aren't easy to do. The interview process, and 10 ESCOs submitted, or I think 9 ESCOs submitted responses. Committees had to go through those, shortlist it down to 4. We had final interviews, and at the end of that, on April 28th, Siemens and Con Ed were selected. And it was funny because I remember Mark called me and said, you know, this is what we want to do. You guys have been, you know, shortlisted, and so is Siemens. You both came out on top. You obviously are the best choices, and we'd like to split the district. And, you know, we haven't gone through this before ourselves. It just was something new. And I said, sure, you know, if that's what you guys want, that's what we'll do. Don't have a problem with it. And in a way, it kind of helped us too, because to do 4 million square feet could be a year-long project. And in this case, now we're able to get it done twice as fast by having everybody on the ground. And it's really worked out well. And And like Gary said, a lot better than we thought it would. So that said, we then got our contracts in order in July. We started assembling information in July in preliminary walkthroughs, the first go around of walkthroughs of many. And then once we got all of our information, we started the clock and said, okay, now we're off and running. The mix, as you see, the blue is Con Ed and the green is Siemens. And we were each given 2 of the other's sites. So we had Harmony and Parton Settlement, and you guys had Celebration and Sunrise. So we have conducted ourselves accordingly. We have met with the staff of facilities as well as maintenance many times to identify prioritization of needs. Like you need chillers. You got chillers that are at end-of-life issues out there. You got other chillers that are not quite there but will be very soon. Then you got others that are on the horizon. And so we have to consider them all, look at costs for them, and build all that into the modeling so we can prioritize. And after we got that done, we were able to begin finalizing our analysis and coming up with the final conservation measures that would be presented at this point in time to the staff. So I just thought I'd thank our teams here for all their hard work and the district for its patience and maintenance. I'm going to turn it back over to Gary now to talk about what we have found.
Thank you. So what were some of the
You guys
observations?
do two-part harmony also?
If that's what it's gonna take. You might wanna go somewhere else, though.
Yeah. You might want to get some
The
earplugs.
harmony part's questionable.
So what were some of the observations that became obvious during this stage? As Jeff said, we had a lot of people on the ground, looking in a lot of places, looking at a lot of equipment, and it took weeks and dedicated team. So what were some of the observations? Osceola County, through an aggressive management of your energy spend and facilities, has a utility index, energy index well below the norm and well below neighboring districts in the region where you can compare seasons and climate, et cetera. Some of the reasons why that is because you had an aggressive conversion to T8. You also controlled your hours of usage for HVAC and also lighting very tightly with automation upgrades. You were very strong in your summer shutdowns and managing on short weeks. You had team looking at your power and water bill monitoring, as well as just manually just shutting off equipment. So it's hard to beat the energy savings that come from just shutting things off. So you guys have been very aggressive. So what that has done is created a challenge for us to be able to find what in our industry we call the low-hanging fruit savings. However, we still find some. So looking at the systems that we evaluated were the lighting, aging infrastructure, controls, equipment that are needed for upgrade, as Jeff mentioned. Water conservation, which is a great way to be able to save money with low flow fixtures. This was taken out of one of our documents presented to staff, which very specifically on each of the schools, we went down looking under building lighting, looking at improvement measures. On the HVAC, specific improvement measures, controls, building envelope, and water conservation. So here we are now in the final days of wrapping up the audit, and so what that means is that we are analyzing improvements versus savings. We're working with our designers, we're working with subcontractors to get specific pricing, and all of that is now in the final days and weeks of being able to wrap that up. Going forward, we have a deadline to turn, contractual deadline with the district to turn in our investment grade audit on May 3rd. We are well suited on both sides to be able to deliver that. We hope to, on May 10th, be able to present a list of financial institutions that would like to provide proposals for funding the project. And then following review and a meeting with your appropriate staff, superintendent, we would then go out and issue an RFP for financing on June 21, and then being able to have the results of that sent directly back to you and to your CFO, so that we can then meet on June 7th to be able to go through those together and agree on what might be the appropriate solution going forward. We then plan on presenting the final project that would be vetted through maintenance and facilities, and the final financing, which would then be approved by your CFO, and bring that forward to a board workshop. We propose June 1. Now, again, Madam Superintendent, there's June.
That's what I said. Oh, that's
The new,
what we
I think
changed.
that's the new date.
Yeah.
Respectfully, these are presented for your consideration, because you'll notice on the bottom, we have some aging equipment that we would like to take the window of the Christmas holiday to be able to replace. The equipment's outside the school, so we would be able to do that from the outside. And with the long lead time, to be able to finish the design, get the submittals approved, and procure that equipment and get it delivered. These dates set that up for success. So, ma'am, I'd like you to just understand the nature in which we're presenting these dates.
Gary,
So,
if you start on August 1st, I get the Christmas part for the children. How long is this? You say you commence the project. How long is this project? Roughly. I mean,
I'd say between 9, 12 months.
Okay, so it's about, it's not a 3-year, it's.
No, no,
Oh, okay.
no, that's
Okay.
another one of the benefits of this
Okay.
type of procurement. We've done a lot of the pre-design already.
Okay.
By the time we get to that point, we have finalized engineering and permitting to do, but we already know the scopes, we already know the specs, we already know the pricing, it's all nailed down, and we can pretty much hit the ground running. And what we usually will start with is the lighting, and do the lighting after hours, non-disruptive. We're very respectful of the learning environment. We have very good teams, both sides. They have one contractor, we have another, and these guys have done this extensively, and they are good.
one of the things that we all agree on together and get the support of maintenance and facilities is doing the items that will return immediate energy savings back, so you can start seeing energy savings immediately. So the aggressive improvement measures such as lighting, you get immediate payback. Water conservation, the same thing. Next priority is looking at equipment that's near failure that could cause disruption to the educational process. So those items are pushed forward too. And in actuality, that is a big reason why an aggressive schedule from here to a contract is so that we can make sure that at the schools that have that those potential equipment issues, that we would be ready to address those and have no disruption or need for temporary air to be brought in, et cetera. So it's a lot of information, Dr. Pace, and we appreciate you allowing us to cut it back, but we're here to answer any questions going forward.
Sure. If we standardize some stuff, there's gonna be some labor savings, I would think. Are we gonna let labor savings be part of the energy the savings calculation or not?
We have chosen the contract not to make that part of the
Okay.
savings.
Okay, because we're not gonna get rid of those people, I get that. I think that it's important that we get a list of the chillers, number one, what the replacement cycle is, which ones we anticipate being included, which ones need to be included, we don't have the money to fund. So that way, I mean, I'm sure that, you guys know what we need, I'm sure.
Jay, we've done that in the background through facility condition assessment. We know the age of our equipment. We have shared that with these guys. There is a lot that we would love to
but
include
you
in
don't have money
this.
to do it all.
But
Right.
there, there's limited funding.
Right,
So-
I understand. So I guess the question I've got is, okay, let's see the ones that we're doing. The ones that we're not doing, what do we expect? Are some of them held together with, toothpicks and rubber bands, or some of them, and I realize that it's nobody's fault, it's just,
Yes, sir.
we got this much need and this much money, and
Yes,
I
sir.
get that.
If I
So-
could answer that part of it, one thing that we didn't go into in depth, because I do need to sit down with Sarah and and Dr. Pace is to go over what our options are, but the thought is on some of that, and you're right, on those larger capital items, the chill water system, to replace the chillers, the savings are so long, okay? It takes 20, 25 years, the life of that chiller, or even, to
35.
even capture enough savings. We may have to look at infusing a little bit of our annual capital into doing that, where we are getting way more equipment done. And, you see what I'm saying?
We already
I mean,
have some in our long-range plan, our
We do.
five-year plan anyway.
We do. We do. We have some in that, and then off of our annual maintenance dollars, and I'll sit with Sarah and look at it, as long as we continue to trend at least where we have been historically the last 5 years on what those capital dollars are. I'm hoping they're going to increase a little bit as things get a little better. But to answer that, that's how we can get some of them that they can't
Right.
capture in the whole thing. We may have to put a little bit in, and then we have to look at the whole list and prioritize those that we can't get to.
Board, years ago, we did a contract with a company, then they were called Energy Educators, now they're Synergistics. What happened to that $1 million a year we're sending to them?
Well, that's,
No, I don't. That's why I'm
Yeah,
asking.
I'd have to get with finance and find out. I
Okay,
mean,
because that was directly
right.
related to energy, so it would make sense that we know
Yes, right.
that there's that there's some kind of connection with that.
Right.
As far as, this is really a Sarah. I mean, is this going to be considered an operating versus a capital lease? Now, I don't know the answer to that, I'll let you decide that. But I mean, you talk to 10 CFOs, you're gonna get 10 different answers. And I'm not telling you what the answer should be. But that, and they affect us differently, obviously. If it's a capital lease, it's gonna affect our capital budget and bonding ability. If it's an operating lease, it doesn't. So,
One of the things that I've shared with staff is that regardless of whether it's an operational lease or a capital lease, I want this to be a part of our long-term capital strategy. I mean, in the end, we can do whatever we want to do, but we can't do everything. That's why I think it's important that we align this work with our capital planning work so that we're clearly prioritizing and making the best use of this opportunity
well,
to fix
relative
our
to
schools
that,
more than we used to be able to.
No, and relative to, what you're really talking about is taking all the deferred maintenance stuff. I mean, it comes under capital, but it's deferred maintenance stuff, and, there's no way we can bite all that out. That's why we're
Right.
doing this. This is, board, we talked about different ways to generate revenues. Well, this may not be a different way to generate revenue. It is a different procurement methodology that, in our circumstance, it makes sense. If you're flush with cash, you don't do this because you don't have to pay the financing charges and the measurement and verification, but we're not flush with cash. I'd like to know what's going on with the Synergistics $1 million. We're giving them $1 million, and we should know what's going on with that. Are we looking at any plug load technology? There's some new plug load technology that's out there, and I don't know.
I know.
We have researched some of that during
We
this
look
process.
at it, we look at it, and basically, the bandwidth that it consumes to work over your Wi-Fi systems would overwhelm your schools.
I'm not talking about for the computers. You're talking about the computers or the plug load?
We have two separate things going on. The plug loads require a Wi-Fi connection so they can be programmed. And those will enable you to turn off printers and water fountains and lights and a lot of other devices.
Okay.
But those parasitic loads are so scattered throughout the building and movable. They're movable.
Okay.
We don't believe the juice is worth the squeeze, really,
Okay.
in the end.
Okay,
We
yeah.
looked at that and some preliminary numbers, and I think, Calvin, you guys would agree, right? So that's one thing. But one thing we are looking hard into is the computer power management technology. And the only way for us to know if it offers any benefit is to run testing.
Right.
And we're in the middle of that right now. That's going on.
Here's
So
the question I've got for that, though. Let's say we do a project that is, and not just for that, but for everything. Let's say it turns into a 15-year payback, okay?
Right.
We're gonna have a lot of things in there that have got maybe a 10-year life cycle or warranty for 10 years. So how are you gonna warranty stuff that we're paying for, say in year 11 through 15, it's not under warranty? Explain how you're gonna help us warranty that stuff for that period of time.
I'll let you take that one.
Sure.
Well, I
Thanks,
don't
Tim.
want to monopolize.
No, of course. Most of the equipment that we're putting in is gonna last 15 years.
Right.
There is some technologies, like that plug load management stuff, that we have some concerns that it's not gonna last 15 years. And The computer management software, we wouldn't take that out for 15 years either, so what we would do
Technology
is
changes,
part of the
right.
cash flow is just figured in for 5 years or
Exactly.
7 years, and then fade out the savings, figuring that at that point, you would get rid of that.
And technology is changing so fast, and, you know, we keep seeing like, you know, lights that were 40 watts are now taking 12 watts, and they're predicting even better savings. That's why we're looking at LED, which are 15. But the point being, computers have changed drastically for you guys over the last couple of years. I mean, you've got many more laptops than you did in the past. So
Sure.
all of those plugged in the wall desktops that you're migrating away from, that would be a reason we would fade the savings out for something like that quickly, because you're probably not gonna need those anymore. So we're trying to look at things that are gonna really be real and not pretend savings.
Okay. Now, and then with statute 1013.23, not the 49 one, the education code allows for new construction performance contracting. We are actually tracking to construct a new $70 million plus high school, which I know is not part of any scope right now, but it's really for staff. I mean, and if you're familiar with how that works, it works specifically where if you get an air conditioning system that meets the minimum standard that you have to for a building that size, but there's a more efficient unit, but it costs more money, if they can show the metrics where the savings pay for the more efficient unit, and they're willing to take on the risk. When I say they, one of the ESCOs, either or, I'm not telling you who should or shouldn't have it, we can get more efficient fixtures in that. And you gotta look at 1013.23, there's very specific language that Mr. Brown can research and show us. It's, but that's education code. It's not allowed for any other type of government agency in the state of Florida. It's allowed for education. And, you know, if we can get that $80 million school for $70 million, that's not a bad thing either necessarily. But, you know, you gotta see if it meets a lot of other standards that we're looking at. I just, you know, this is something I think we've needed to do, and I appreciate that Dr. Pace is now officially on board, and that Sarah is officially here, and they need to look at this. But, you know, to get the low-hanging fruit done, I think their timeline is on target. These are two good companies, and, you know, just when will we see the energy conservation measures and the paybacks? I guess that's really. And as far as the RFP for financing, let me ask about that. Do we want to do that on two tracks? Do we want them to do it exclusively? What typically happens on a lot of these kinds of projects is a government agency, county, school board, university, et cetera, they will work with an ESCO who will, on a parallel track with that agency, look for the financing. If they get a better rate, they get a better rate. If the owner gets a better rate, they get a better rate. However, in some instances, the owner, the school district, county, et cetera, wants the ESCO to find the financing, because in some of those instances, if they bring everything, it is not looked at as a capital expense or as a bonding issue. I'm not telling you how we should or shouldn't, that's for you and your staff to decide, but at the same time, if we can save a little bit more one way or the other. Have you guys looked at qualified energy conservation bonds for this at all?
We haven't, no. I don't know if
We haven't.
Con Ed has. There hasn't.
They're still held at the state right now.
No, they've released them, they have identified what the counties get. There's over $2 million available for Osceola County. The way this money works, that money specifically goes to pay for interest on a loan. It's for, not for principal. However, because we're a public agency, we can borrow at public financing rates, but this is intended to borrow at retail rates. And for instance, if you borrow, say, follow this, Clarence, I know you'll get this. If retail rates are 4.5%, and you can borrow at 70%, but our rating with Moody's and Standard & Poor's is such that we can get that at 4%, they'll still pay 70% of the 4.5%, so you're paying essentially 75% at 4%, so you're borrowing at 1%. The catch is, the project has to show a verifiable 20% reduction in energy. And I don't know that we're there or that we're not there, or that you gotta cherry pick pieces out of it. But there's $2.1 million set aside that has to be used in Osceola County specifically by a government. It could be Valencia, it could be us, it could be the county, it could be the city, it could be the airport or the expressway authority.
Who determines who gets this?
Excuse me?
Who determines who gets it if two of us
The
want?
county government's got to release it. The county is, they're the ones who house it, and the government signed off on it. It's federal dollars, and so it's not deficit spending. We got the money anyways, Tim. So
So
those.
we'd have to get approved from the county commission.
Right, but if they're not gonna use it.
No, I got you.
Yeah, I mean, if they probably don't even know about
Right.
it, so there's some pieces and there's some parts and pieces to that. I think that, you know, let's talk about the contract for a second. Who develops the terms and conditions? Do we do it, or do they do it, or we determine that?
We're doing a draft policy at the Lower Brown's office right now.
I think to get
And
this.
then we will do that collaboratively.
Okay.
You guys are using the state term contract and the
Okay.
standard template, and
Mhm.
the exhibits are what we're gonna be talking about soon. And there's no reason we can't start talking about those things now, because, you know, it's not dependent upon.
Well, the exhibits would be blank right now. 'cause
They
you don't
would be, but,
understand.
I mean, which ones, you know, as you know, the state
But I
term
think you're right.
contract has,
We need to get the review started.
yeah, we do, we
Right.
have to start talking. about
Because
it.
we could get bogged down with lawyers.
And we are, it's already at.
Mr.
There's
Brown's
like-
office is
Mr.
is
Brown
already
and-
on it.
And two at Mr. Brown's office. is
Good,
working.
Yeah.
good, and, okay, that's good. That's all I've got. I'm anxious to see the energy conservation measures and the paybacks and what the interest rate is.
We think you're gonna be very excited about the project, for sure, and there are options that can open that box up bigger and bigger, again, depending upon what your finance folks decide is in your best interest as far as using capital dollars that are already, you know,
I gotta think-
assigned down the road.
To save money, does it
to
make sense
this
for
happen.
us to buy any of this stuff and assign it to the job?
We can take a look at that.
I mean, because there's some savings on taxes and things like that.
Well, yeah, we
Like, there'd be things
fully
that are-
planned on the right items, of course, not
Right,
both,
not-
but, you know, the big items are direct purchase,
Mm-hmm.
safety,
Yeah,
sales
absolutely.
tax. We don't have a problem doing that.
A
That's
real
very
piece
easy
of this
to do.
puzzle, we need to know what's going on with that $1 million that was going to Synergistics.
We'll find that
And
out.
that was,
That's operational. I don't know. I'll have to, I'll meet with Ms. Graber and we'll have an answer for y'all on that.
that's all I got.
One thing, just to add on what you just said, when you get there, is I'd like to see in your final presentation, here's what we're planning on doing, here's the things we got cut out, so we can look and see too if there's something we think we should swing one way or the other.
And maybe-
So we
maybe
can tell what the whole
three
opportunity is and tell what we're biting to.
There's a couple of different
Different
bites that you can
matrix,
take,
yeah,
so you can
that we
make the
can.
choice.
And you
Yeah,
can
I'd like
do-
to see it.
You can do a
Yeah.
second, if this goes well, you can do a second.
No, I
or
get
third
that, I just
phase.
kinda wanna make, I just wanna be able to see what we're
Absolutely.
You bet.
leaving on the table.
Yeah.
Tim, do you have a question?
Yeah, good.
Kevin?
You must have done a good job then.
We don't have the numbers yet.
You did, but
Yeah,
I'm gonna say
yeah.
you did, but I'm ready for the numbers.
Yeah.
next round.
Right.
So-
We'll have that.
We understand.
And
Yeah.
Jay did a great job of running through everything. I mean, it was good
Yeah.
questions that helped, I think, the whole
Yes,
board.
thank you.
So-
Yeah, that was very helpful.
Thank you, Jay.
Superintendent, you have any questions? You good?
I'm good.
We know a lot of work has gone into this, it wasn't just a 20-minute presentation.
Yeah.
We appreciate that.
That's at 45.
All right, we will stand adjourned then.
Okay.
I said 45.
You did?
Yeah.
I heard him say 20 though.
Yeah, last week you
Well,
said
I can't tell time.
20.
Never mind.
No, I was,
Went an hour and a half.
PowerPoint.
Oh, that was it, yeah, the last one.
So I don't
yeah.
put that much
What was
stock
that
in
on?
here.
That was in the high school.